Close your eyes, I don't wanna be alone tonight. Come alive, I've been looking for a chance to cross the line. I'm not afraid, this could be love. I can't fall away, this could be love. This could be love. Close your eyes, I don't wanna be alone tonight. Come alive, I've been looking for a chance to cross the line. I'm not afraid, this could be love. I can't fall away, this could be love. This could be love. This could be love. This could be love. I'm not afraid. This could be love. I can't fall away. This could be love.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Imperial Diecast. Today we're going to be taking a look at a 124 scale car again. And of course, as you know, it's going to be a review on the Audi R8 4.2 FSI Quattro by Welly. The Audi R8 is arguably the most famous all-wheel drive supercar. Since it was first released in 2006, the R8 has always been considered the sibling and rival of the Lamborghini Gallardo, and interestingly, the car itself is actually based on the Gallardo platform. This comes as no surprise because both Audi and Lamborghini are owned by the same parent company, which is the Volkswagen Group. Now, while the Gallardo underwent many changes, from the first generation over the first generation Superleggera to the second generation LP560-4, which I've already reviewed on my channel, and the second generation Superleggera to the Huracan Performante, and so on, the Audi R8 has only undergone a few facelifts over the past, dear God, it has been 13 years since 2006, hasn't it? And the current second-gen R8, which replaced this car in 2015, is now sold as the R8 V10 Plus. So the model you're looking at here is the first-generation Audi R8, which is also personally the best-looking R8 to me. I really am not a fan of the second generation, which I actually got the privilege of seeing in real life back in 2015 at an auto show, and this is the picture that I took of that car. And the reason why I'm saying that I'm not such a big fan of it is because its headlights and taillights have simply gotten too sharp and angular in my opinion. And this carbon fiber side blade here has been split in two. And these slated grills here up front and at the back have been replaced by boring flat meshes. So in today's review, I'm going to be taking you guys a few years back in time to show you all the quirks and features of this older Audi R8. This first generation was sold as two different versions. This one has the 4.2 liter V8 engine, but apart from this, there's also a 5.2 liter V10 engine developed as a response to the Gallardo LP560-4. Then in 2011, Audi released the R8 GT, of which there's a really beautiful 1/18 scale model made by Maisto. And then there's also a 1/24 scale Rastar model of the R8 LMS race car, which also has the 5.2 liter V10, but rear-wheel drive instead of all-wheel drive. Now, Welly has done this car in other colors as well, most notably white and matte black. Maisto has also done this first generation R8 V8 in 1/24 scale. However, personally, I think Welly's version looks so much better, and in this review, I'm going to show you all these details. The kind of details that almost make it look like a Kyosho from the distance, but in 1/24 scale. Looking at the front of this diecast model car, this is where you get to see arguably the most detailed aspect about this 1/24 scale car, and that is the level of detail on the headlights. I mean, just look at these. These are some of the most detailed headlights I have ever seen on a 1/24 scale car. No pegs, beautiful DRLs, depth and shading is also perfect. In fact, I dare say that these headlights are even more detailed than the headlights on the 1/18 scale Maisto Audi R8, the regular version. Which is why I actually recommend to buy the 1/18 scale Maisto Audi R8 GT instead, because the headlights on the GT do not have any pegs and actually look a little bit better than the one on the regular 1/18 scale Audi R8. But returning to this 1/24 scale here, I mean, we otherwise, of course, also have the iconic rings of Audi over here. You got the front grille surrounded by chrome. License plate says Audi R8. And over here, we have a little badge that says Quattro, indicating the all-wheel drive of this car. And here's another close-up of these front grille, along with the three slats on each side, which I personally think look so much better than the one on the second generation Audi R8 right now. And here's a look at the side profile of this vehicle. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a big fan of this singular side blade here. It's made out of carbon fiber, and the texture looks pretty impressive. And here's a closer look at the car's wheels. You can see that this is a 10-spoke rim. It's got the Audi logo in the middle, surrounded by lug nuts, and behind we not only have a brake disc, but we can also see that it is vented. However, there are no brake calipers, so that's one downside. The brake disc does move with the wheel, as it should. And here's a close-up of the mirrors of this car. And you can see that Welly did a pretty good job with these. There's a pretty good reflection quality right there. And here's a look at the back of the car, which I don't really like all too much. Primarily because if you look at the taillights, each of them has two pegs, so that kind of sucks. However, at the same time, what I do like about the taillight is that apart from the peg, you can see that there's actually a depth to them, and behind the pegs, the actual lights have been designed as separate pieces. Welly has had some issues with the die-cast body or the casting of this car. As you can see down here, the edge is pretty rough. They could have done a better job right here. Otherwise, we have the Audi logo, the Audi R8 on the rear license plate, quad exhaust, and moving further up, we have the spoiler. Of course, the spoiler does not lift up because it's just a 1/24 scale car. However, you can see that we do have a pretty nice carbon fiber texture on the spoiler itself. Apart from the doors, another thing that opens on this 124 scale Audi R8 by Welly is the rear engine cover. I feel like this is a better thing to open compared to my 124 scale Lamborghini Gallardo by Welly, where only the front trunk opened, but the rear engine cover did not. But thankfully it opens here, and so this gives us a very good view of the 4.2 liter 32 valve V8 engine, FSI, which stands for fuel stratified injection. This first generation Audi R8's engine has a capacity of 414 brake horsepower and can achieve a top speed of 301 kilometers per hour and goes from 0 to 100 in 4.3 seconds. These stats are comparable to the first generation Lamborghini Gallardo, which had a slight edge over the R8 in terms of raw power because it had 493 horsepower instead of just 414, a top speed of 309 instead of 301, and went from 0 to 100 in 4 seconds instead of 4.3. However, it had worse handling than the R8. So this meant that both cars had almost identical lap times on many circuits and were therefore considered rivals. Let me know in the comments section which of these two supercars you prefer, the Audi R8 or the first generation Lamborghini Gallardo. In any case, I have to say that I'm quite impressed with the level of detail on the engine of this 124 scale model. I mean, you can see we have the Audi branding on both of the engine blocks, and over here we can see that it says V8 FSI. You can also see this texture over here, which is, I believe, some kind of heat shielding. And then we have all these little valve covers over here, and even down here. And over here we can see some cables as well. So, I think this looks great. One annoying flaw that this model car of mine has is that if you look at here, this part right here, you can see that it has this dent on the roof. That's unfortunate, but I guess I'll have to live with it. Now let's move on to the interior and check out the awesomeness that awaits us. For scale 124, this is a very impressive interior. Let's begin by taking a look at the very right, and you can see just how much detail went into this air vent. Not only does it have a button at the very center, but it also has this sort of depth to it, which I love. We also have a little logo on the dashboard. I don't think it says anything though, but on the real car it would say Quattro, I assume. But take a look at that center console. I mean, just wow. Huge amounts of detail. Got the two vents at the top. Although the molding is not as precise, the one surrounding the whole center console. You can see that we have these mold lines, which shouldn't exist, but in any case, it's painted in silver. And I have seen other 124 scale Welly Audi R8s where the entire thing is black, so I don't know whether I got like a second batch, an improved batch of models or something, but the interior in mine was painted silver, so this is not something that I painted. So I'm not sure why Welly released two different batches, but still, I mean, it looks absolutely gorgeous. In the middle, for example, you can see the sat-nav and what appears to be a map of like all the roads surrounding the car. Below you have a row of buttons, individual buttons that is, and then further down below you have more buttons. This is a manual, so you can see the stick shift in the middle. The base is painted silver. And here's a look at the handbrake. So I gotta say, very impressive interior. Let's check out the driver's side. So here we are at the driver's side, and You can see that this is a 3-spoke steering wheel. We've got the Audi logo in the center. And here's another look at the center console from this side. Looks great. But take a look at the detail on the instrument panel behind the steering wheel. I mean, we got these 2 gauges and they have a depth to them, which is great. Got the rev meter and the speedometer. It's almost as if the gauges were readable. That's how much detail we got going on there. Got the air vent to the left. And down below we have the floor pedals. Now these floor pedals aren't painted, they were completely black, but I did add like a little bit of silver to them so that they're a little more visible. But still, it's a huge amount of detail for the interior of this 124 scale car. And one thing I forgot to show you on the other side, actually, it's more visible, is we even have 2 cup holders. And here's a look at the seats. Nothing special, but yeah. And one other detail I forgot to show you is this part right here. Also pretty nice. And unfortunately, one downside is that the front wheels do not swivel from side to side, so they just roll forward and back. I'm not sure exactly why Welly decided to not implement this feature, because most of their 124 scale models have this feature, along with the steering wheel corresponding to the movements of the front wheels. But some of the older 124 scale Welly models do not have this feature, so just keep that fact in mind. Another little detail I forgot to show you is that we have a fuel cap over here, and it has these 3-dimensional details, and I believe it even says R8, although it's pretty hard for my camera to focus that, along with some detail over here as well. And here's a look at the bottom of the car. You can see it says Audi R8, scale 124, Welly, made in China. Number 22,493. Usually 124 scale cars have like a production run of, I believe, 100,000 models. In terms of detail, we do have like the suspension detail over here, although the car itself doesn't have any suspension. You can see the transmission here at the back, since this is a mid-engine car. And then over here, it even has a brake light painted in red. I believe it's also visible if we just put the car like this. Yeah. Pretty cool. Alright guys, I hope you liked this review of the 124 scale Audi R8 by Welly. Be sure to check out the review of the 124 scale Lamborghini Gallardo LP560-4, also by Welly, that I have reviewed in the past. And I'll catch you in the next video. This is Imperial Diecast, signing out.